Hi, it's Christina Weng from Baylor College of Medicine, and I'd like to welcome you to the Retina TLDR, where we tackle the most topical issues in the retina space with leading experts in the field. My pleasure to welcome here today a colleague and longtime friend, Dr. Pravin Dugel. Needs no introduction, but he is the Executive Chairman, CEO, and President of Ocular Therapeutics. Dr. Dugel is here to give us an update today regarding OTX-TKI, also known as XPAXLY, a leading TKI candidate that is at a pivotal point in its development journey. Welcome, Praveen. Thanks so much for being here.
Christina, thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and talking to you. Thank you.
It's our privilege. Well, we're looking forward to learning more about OTX-TKI today, but humor me for just a second and let me explain what motivated the creation of this series. So last year, Praveen, I was shocked to learn that the average attention span these days has shrunk to just 47 seconds. Yours is probably even shorter, Praveen, I'm guessing. So even though I encourage the audience to tune in for the entire conversation, this certainly is going to be a really fun one. We start every interview with the TLDR. So Praveen, what's your TLDR?
With OTX-TKI, what we're trying to do is to solve two problems. One is that of sustainability, which is really obvious to all retina specialists. The other one that may not be quite as obvious to others other than retina specialists is that of chronic long-term outcomes. As you know, fibrosis and atrophy lead to poor outcomes in the long term. So that's probably because of pulsatile treatment. So we're trying to solve two problems. One is of sustainability, and the other is of chronic long-term outcomes.
That's perfect. And we're going to unpack that a little bit more. But, let's start at a high level, Praveen. The last time I counted, there were 15 available anti-VEGF treatments. So my question to you is, just speaking from a class perspective, how do TKIs differ from the options we already have? I mean, what's the need here?
Yeah, so it's not just the TKI, Christina, it's the TKI and where it is, the platform. Remember, it's a combination of the TKI, which is the most potent TKI against a target that we know is de-risked, which is the VEGF receptor, right? It's the strongest, most selective TKI against the VEGF receptors, amongst other receptors as well, but that's the most important one. That's packaged in a platform that is a tunable hydrogel. So really the secret sauce is the combination of the two.
And briefly tell us, elaborate just a little bit, Praveen, about OTX TKI for wet AMD specifically. And heads up, that's your easy question, then I'm going to delve into some harder questions.
Well, the idea behind using it for wet AMD is really, very straightforward. As I said, the two goals, one is that of sustainability, that is what the other is of long-term outcome. But the beauty of this is because it's entirely tunable, the hydrogel is, and because we have such a potent and selective TKI, we can tune it to what we think retina specialists will want in terms of durability. We think that retina specialists, all of us in this company pretty much being retina specialists, people that would like to see our patients every 6 months or so. To have a drug that is compatible with that, you would really want a drug that's going to last for 9 to 10 months in case, for instance, the patient gets sick or the doctor's not able to make it. So this is perfectly tuned for that, which is a drug that's going to last for 9 to 10 months.
Yeah, it's interesting what you said, in speaking with a lot of our friends and colleagues, there does seem to be a Goldilocks duration that people are looking for. And I agree with you that that seems to be a target that everyone has their eye on at this point. Going too long makes a little people nervous. And so I think 6 to 12 months is really kind of a sweet spot. Totally agree. Praveen, congratulations on fully enrolling your two pivotal studies. The design of your phase 3 programs is a bit unorthodox, and it's generated a lot of curiosity. Let's talk about that a little bit, starting with SOL-1. So in this study, both arms are receiving 2 loading aflibercept injections, and then are randomized to either a single aflibercept 2 milligram injection versus a single AXPAXLY implant. And then, if I'm correct, they basically ride it out until they meet rescue criteria, with the primary outcome looking at the proportion of patients with less than a 3-line loss at week 36. So hopefully I've recapped that accurately, but I've got 2 questions for you. Praveen, why was it designed this way? And the harder one really is, how do you respond to pushback about allowing patients' vision to fall without necessarily intervening?
Christina, great questions. And that's exactly the questions that I asked before I came to this company and spoke to the FDA about as well, actually. So let me just say this. In February of 2023, the FDA came with very, very clear guidance. And the guidance revolved around what they wanted to see in terms of study design for a superiority path and a non-inferiority path. It was very clear, it's in their website. And this is exactly the design that they wanted. This is per the FDA for a superiority path. What is consistent in both the superiority path as well as the non-inferiority path is that they did not want to see any sham. They didn't think that sham was proper masking. From a superiority point of view, what they said was they said, look, we're not going to allow sponsors to go up against a label that's never used. And we all know that the label for Eylea and Lucentis, Vabysmo, high-dose Eylea, what have you, are never followed. We all do treat and extend. And if you talk to the FDA, they'll tell you this is a version of treat and extend. It's about as clear a scientific head-to-head test as you can possibly get. Now, you may agree or disagree with that, but that is the FDA guidelines, and that is the guidelines that we're following exactly. And remember, yes, it's a 15-letter loss, but if you think about the net loss, it's no more than 5 letters because they've got to gain 10 letters at least to get in the study to begin with. And one would argue that this is not that much different than treat and extend, at least one cycle of treat and extend, where oftentimes one does wait for vision to get worse or for fluid to come back. Now, again, what I want to say, it's one time that the patient loses a net of at the most 5 letters of vision. And then the patient is rescued. And from that point on, the patient is treated as per the PI's discretion. It is the first of its kind trial. There's no doubt about it. But I do want to tell you that, look, this is exactly what the FDA wanted. This is exactly what the FDA wanted to see for a pure scientific outcome. And to validate that, we have a special protocol agreement, which is the highest level of agreement that you can get with the FDA.
I appreciate those insights, Pravin. Shifting to SOL-R now, the companion trial. This is a non-inferiority design, which we're, of course, more used to seeing, but there are still some interesting elements in its design, including the inclusion of aflibercept 8 milligrams in one of the 3 arms, along with a robust pre-randomization screening process. Can you share a little bit about SOL-R and how its results you expect to complement those of SOL-1?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, with SOL-1, what we have is a phenomenal regulatory endpoint. It's going to provide us, if successful, with a path to get the first and only superiority label. And that's a really important thing to have for physicians and patients, as well as for payers, and for reasons that we can discuss later on. Again, it's the first and only superiority label that we're going to get. However, that endpoint, as you mentioned, may not necessarily be what is familiar to clinicians because they really don't wait, as you rightly said, for a significant visual acuity loss. So what we did was a complementary trial, again, approved by the FDA, that is much more akin to what clinicians are used to seeing, which is a non-inferiority trial going head-to-head against the standard of care, which is 2 milligrams of Eylea. However, one of the things that we had to do was to design a third arm per the FDA's guidance, because as I said earlier on, they do not think that sham injections are proper masking. So there's a masking arm that's required. And for that masking arm, we could have chosen anything. We could have chosen water. We could have chosen anything at all. But we chose high-dose Eylea specifically for a commercial advantage. We are very confident that our drug will beat high-dose Eylea. And this way, after both trials are done and looked at together, every question that the clinician has and the patient has and the payer has will be answered. One question may be, how long does this drug last? Well, SOL-1 will answer that. Is this drug repeatable? SOL-R will answer that. How does this drug do against the standard of care? SOL-R will answer that. How does this drug do against the second version of Eylea? SOL-R will answer that. So the complementary nature of these 2 trials will answer all the relevant questions, at least that the physician, the patient, and the payers want to know.
Yeah, great insights. So readout coming soon, and I hear that the company's planning to leverage the 505(b)(2) regulatory pathway, which might shorten the review timeline. So 2026 will be a big year for all of you at Ocular. Is that a safe assumption?
It's a very safe assumption, and you're right. We think that we will save at least a couple of months in the front end for the reasons that you mentioned. These are 2 components that are individually FDA approved. And on the back end, because we have a SPA for SOL-1, we believe that our filing will be very efficient. And recently, as you know, Christina, we've announced, per the FDA announcement, that we will be filing with one study, which is SOL-1. We believe that this will be most likely to be approved of all studies because it's the only one that I know of in retina with a SPA. In fact, now we've got two studies with a SPA, one in the wet AMD and the other one in non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy.
Very exciting. So we will all stay tuned. Pravin, where can viewers go to learn more about AXPAXLI?
Right to our website. Our website has a whole plethora of information there. If you go to the website, you can go to any of the tabs. Actually, the investor tab has a whole bunch of links to download, and everything, all the talks and everything else are all uploaded there.
Fantastic. We'll make sure we leave the link below for the viewers to check out on their own time. One final question for you, sir. You are truly self-made, and don't let this get to your head, but an incredibly unique combination of brilliance, strategy, and drive. You could have called it quits a long time ago, and yet you continue to fuel progress in our space. What's your why, Pravin? What keeps you motivated to keep going here?
Well, I think it's the number of people that we can reach, right, by doing what we're doing as physicians. It was great. We love doing what we do. I loved operating, but quite honestly, all I could see was so many patients in a day. And when with doing this, if these drugs work the way we believe that it will, it allows for a reach that's way beyond what anybody can do in a clinic. And I think that's really what motivates me. The other one is just the people that I'm with. I can't imagine a better group to be around, and these are the best of the best, and these are also my friends. So I wake up every day, and I love to work with them. I love to interact with them, and I love to learn from them. So that's what keeps me going.
Love it. Well, great to learn more about AXPAXLI today. And like you mentioned, I know you're also working on your DR program, so stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting year for you all. I know how incredibly busy you are, Pravin, so really appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks for the time, the opportunity, and it's always wonderful to talk to you. Thank you.
Truly our privilege. Well, we've just kicked off season 2 of the Retina TLDR, and we welcome your feedback. So please reach out with any through the contact listed below. In the meantime, I'm your host, Christina Weng, and we'll catch you next time on the Retina TLDR.